Good evening. I think it is audible. Today we are going to discuss about exposure to physical assets, financial assets, and human assets. So exposure is nothing but the risk which you are going to face for the physical asset, financial asset, and human asset. So assets are commonly known as anything with a value that represent economic resources or ownership that can be converted into something of value such as cash, financial assets, and physical assets. Uh, Both financial asset and physical asset they represent ownership of value, even though they are very different to each other uh, based on their features and characteristics. Uh, Many easily confuse the two types of assets to be one and the similar thing, but it is not one and the similar thing. So first, let us take financial assets. So financial assets are intangible. You cannot see them, you cannot touch and feel it. It means that they cannot be seen and felt and may not have a physical presence except for the existence of a document which represents the ownership interest which is held in the asset. It is important to note that the paper and the certificate that represents these financial assets do not have any intrinsic value. The paper held is only a document certifying the ownership and it is of no value. The paper derives its value from the value of the asset that is represented in that document. So, examples of such financial assets we can say stock, bonds, funds which is held in a bank, investments, accounts receivable, company's goodwill, copyright, patent, etc. So, regardless of the fact that the financial assets do not exist in physical form, they are still recorded in firm's balance sheet to represent the value that which it is held. The next one is a physical asset. So physical assets are tangible assets. As I told you, financial asset it is intangible. Physical assets are tangible assets and can be seen and touched with a very identifiable physical presence. So we can give an example for physical assets as land, building, machinery, plant, tool, equipments, vehicle, gold, silver, or any other form of tangible economic resources. So, from an accounting point of view, physical asset refers to the thing that may be liquidated when the entity owns up its interest. Physical asset have a useful economic life when it is ascertained its age, it may be disposed of. They usually experience a reduction in value due to wear and tear of the asset, through continuous use known as depreciation, or may lose their value in becoming obsolete or too old for use. So, certain tangible assets are also perishable, such as a container of apple or flowers that need to be sold soon in order to ensure that they do not perish and lose their value. So, we have certain differences between a physical asset and a financial asset, but still they have got similarities. The main similarity between the tangible and a physical asset is that they both represent an economic resources that can be converted into a value, and both assets are recorded in firm's balance sheet. So the similarities, they have two similarities. They can be converted into value, and both of them are recorded in balance sheet. These are the two similarities between a financial asset and physical asset. Both of them can be converted into value and recorded in balance sheet. The main difference between the two is that physical assets are tangible. So, physical assets are tangible, whereas financial assets are intangible. Physical assets usually depreciate or lose value due to wear and tear. So, physical assets will be depreciated in the lifetime due to wear and tear, whereas financial assets do not experience such a reduction in the value due to depreciation. So there is no depreciation for financial asset. So our financial asset may lose value to change in the market interest rates, fall in investment returns, or fall in the stock market prices. Physical assets also require maintenance, upgrade, and repair, whereas financial assets do not incur such experiences. So, for physical assets, it's tangible, you have to go for maintenance. Here, no such maintenance is required. So, these are the dissimilarities between financial asset and physical asset. So, first one, financial asset, it is intangible. There is no depreciation for financial asset. There is no maintenance cost for financial asset. Whereas physical asset, the asset is tangible. You can touch and feel the asset. Every year, due to wear and tear, you have to depreciate the value of the asset, and you have to incur maintenance cost to for maintenance cost as well as upgrading and repair cost for that particular physical asset. The next thing we are going to discuss is about human asset. The resources that resides in the knowledge, skill, and motivation of people is called as human assets. Human asset improves with age and experience, which no other resources can do. It is therefore regarded as the scarcest and most crucial productive resources that creates the large lasting advantage for an organization. So exposure of human asset, the risk which we have in human asset is that if an employee quits the job, we have to involve the management has to involve more replacement cost in place of the employee who is leaving the job. So it is more expensive when the employee who is going to leave is of knowledge, skill, and who has got a vast experience in that particular organization. To replace him, we have to involve more cost. So that is what we call it as exposure of human assets. The next topic is exposure of legal liability. So, legal liability is the responsibility based in law to right some wrong done to another person or organization. So, several aspects of this definition deserves further thing to be said. One involves the remedy of liability. A remedy is a compensation for a person who has been harmed in some way. A person who has been wronged or harmed may ask the court to remedy or compensate him or her for the harm. Usually, this will involve monetary compensation, but it could also involve some behavior on the part of the person who committed the wrong. For example, let us take someone whose water supply has been contaminated by a polluting business may request an injunction against the business to force the cessation of pollution. A developer who is constructing a building in violation of a code may be required to halt construction based on the liability lawsuit. When a monetary compensation is sought, it can take one of a several forms. So the first one is special damage or economic damage. So whenever it is a monetary, whenever a monetary compensation is sought, it may take several forms. The first one we call it as a special damage. Or otherwise we call it as economic damage. So special damage or economic damage is a compensation for those who harms that are generally or easily quantifiable into dollars or which are easily measurable in form of dollars. So these may include medical expenses, lost income, the repair cost of the damaged property are called as special damages. The another one which is called as general damages. This is otherwise called as non-economic damage. General damages or otherwise called as non-economic damage when the arms are not specifically quantifiable but that requires a compensation are called general damages. Example of non-economic or general damages includes a pain, suffering, mental stress. All these are called as general damages. When the damage is quantifiable, measurable, then we call it as a special damage. When it is not quantifiable, when it is not at all possible to measure, then we call it as a general damage. One more type of monetary liability awarded is punitive damage. So, punitive damage are considered awarded intended to punish an offender for exceptionally undesirable behavior. Punitive damages are intended not to compensate for the actual harm incurred but rather to punish the person uh, who misbehaves. So, the second important aspect of the exposure of legal liability is that it is based in law. In this way, liability differs from other exposures because it is purely a creation of societal rules, that is law. It is purely a creation of law which reflects social norms. As a result, liability exposure differs across societies, nations over time. In the United States, liability is determined by the court and by law enacted by legislatures. So the risk of liability is two-folded. Not only may you become liable to someone else and suffer loss, but someone else may become liable to you and have to pay you. You need to know about both sides of the coin. So to speak, your financial well-being or that of your organization can be adversely affected by your responsibility to others or by your failure to understand their responsibility to you. If you are partly armed, you would be the plaintiff in litigation. The, the party being sued in the litigation is the defendant. In some circumstances, the parties will be both plaintiff and defendant. So, basis of liability. Basis of liability. The liability exposure may arise out of either statutory or common law. So let us take an example. The law is of two types. One is a statutory law, the other one is a common law. So statutory law is crime against society. Statutory law is based on crime against society. So it is criminal. Whereas common law, it is civil. Common law is civil. It is usually laws to an individual or an organization which has taken place to an individual or organization. So civil, it can be of two types. One is trots, another one is contract warranty. So what is trots and what is contract warranty, I'll tell you. So all these criminal, trots and contract warranty, it is classified into three categories: intentional, unintentional, the third is strict liability. So all these things, if it is of criminal nature, it may result in criminal action. If it is of civil nature, it may result in civil action. So, as I said, there are laws of two types. One is a statutory law, is the body of a written law created by the legislation. Another one is a common law. On the other hand, is it is based on the customs and the court's decision in evolving the common law. The court are guided by the doctrine uh, of stare decisis. In Latin, for it stands for the stands by the decision. So, under the doctrine of stare decisis. So, under the doctrine of doctrine of stare decisis, in Latin it means that stands by the decision. So once the court decision is made in a case, with a given set of facts, the court tends to adhere to the principle thus established and applied it to the future cases involving the similar facts. So this practice provides enough continuity of decision making that many disputes can be settled out of court by referring to the previous decision. So some people nowadays believe that in the recent year, as a new forms of liabilities have emerged, continuity has not been as relevant as in the past. So that this is what we used to apply it for common law. The decision which is made in the previous case will be applied for the common law. So in the field of law includes criminal law and civil law. So one is a statutory law and another one is a common law. In statutory law, it is a criminal law, and another one is in common law we have a civil law. So a criminal law is concerned with the act that are contrary to the public policies, crimes such as murder or the burglary, like that. Civil laws, in contrast, deals with the act that are not against the society as a whole, but rather causes injury or loss to an individual or an organization. Such as, for example, we can take carelessly running a car into the side of a building. Civil wrong may also be a crime, murder, for instance, attack both society and the individual. Civil law has two branches, one concerned with the law of contract and another uh, with the law of torts. So civil liability is a stem from either contract or torts. So contractual liability occurs when the term of contract are not carried out as promised by either party to the contract. So when you sign a agreement, rental agreement for tool, for example, the agreement may provide that the tool will be returned to the owner in good condition. Ordinary warrantor is expected. If they are stolen or damaged, then you are liable for the loss. Another example, if you offer your car for sale and assure the buyer that it is in a perfect condition, you have made a warranty. A warranty is a guarantee that property or service sold is of a condition represented by the seller. If the car is not in a perfect condition, you may be liable for the damages because of a breach of warranty. This is why some sellers offer goods for sale on an as if basis. They want to be sure there is no warranty. Like that, a private or civil wrong or injury other than breach of contract for which the court will provide a remedy in a form of action for the damage. So tort may be intentional if it is committed for a purpose of injuring another person or person's property, or it may be unintentional. Example of intentional tort, we can say that assaulting someone, as you will see in a contract provided as an appendix at the end of uh, for example, usually the risk managers occasionally come across the intentional frauds, whereas most frequent liability is unintentional fraud, frauds. So unintentional frauds usually involves negligence. So if someone suffers bodily injuries or property damages as a result of your negligence, you may be liable for damages. Negligence refers to conduct or behavior. It may be a matter of doing something you should not do or failing to do something you should do. So negligence can be defined as a failure to act responsibly, and the failure to act causes harm to others. It is determined by providing the existence of four elements. Sometimes people use uh, three, combining the last two into one. These four elements are: the first one, a duty to act or not to act. Next, breach of the duty. Damage to one owned the duty. The last fourth one is the casual connection. So it is usually called as the proximate cause between the breach of the duty and the injury. So these are the four elements. Existence, the negligence can be because of these four elements. It is determined by providing the existence of four elements. So some may even have three, combining the last two into one. So let us take an example. When a person operates an automobile, that person has a duty to obey the traffic rules and to provide appropriately for the given conditions. A person who drives while drunk passes in a no passing zone or drives too fast on a high sea road, even if within a set speed limit, has breached the duty to drive safely. If that person completes the journey without an accident, no negligence exists because no harm has occurred. However, the driver causes an accident in which the property is damaged or a body is injured, bodily injury has resulted. All elements of negligence exist, and legal liability for resulting are likely will be placed on the driver. So, a difficult aspect of providing negligence is showing that the breach of duty has occurred. So, proof requires showing that reasonable and prudent person would have acted otherwise. So, court uses a variety of method to assess reasonableness. Uh, so, our subject is not related to law. So, just we should know what is exposure of legal liabilities. So there are three things which we have to consider is exposure of physical assets, exposure of financial assets, then exposure of human assets. Other than this three, next one is exposure of legal liabilities. So in your first unit, we have two more topics to be covered, that is risk management and risk control. So, risk management, we have already discussed in our last class. It is the process of identifying, assessing, and controlling financial, legal, strategic, and security risk to an organization's capital and earnings. So, these threats or risk could stem from a wide variety of sources, including financial uncertainty, legal liabilities, strategic management errors, accidents, and natural disasters. So, if an unforeseen event catches your organization, the impact could be minor, such as small impact on your overhead cost. In a worst case scenario, though, it could be have serious ramifications such as significant financial burden or even a closure of your business. To reduce risk, an organization need to apply resources to minimize, monitor, and control the impact of negative events while maximizing positive events. A consistent, systematic, and integrated approach to risk management can help determine how best to identify, manage, and mitigate significant risks. So, risk control is a set of methods by which firm evaluates potential losses and takes action to reduce or eliminate such threats. So, it is just a technique that utilizes findings from risk assessments, which involves identifying potential risk factors in a company's operation. It may be a technical or non-technical aspect of business, financial policies, and other issues that may affect the well-being of the firm. So risk control also implement protective changes to reduce risk in these areas. Risk control thus helps companies limit lost assets and incomes. Risk control is a key component of companies' enterprise risk management protocol. So how risk control works? So in modern business, uh, it faces a diverse collection of obstacles, competitors, and potential dangers. So, risk control is a plan based business strategy that aims to identify assess and prepare for any danger, hazard, and other potentials for disasters. The core concept of risk control includes: first one is avoidance. So, avoidance is the best method of loss control. For example, after discovering that the chemical which is being used in manufacturing a company's goods is dangerous for the workers, a factory owner has to find a substitute chemical to protect the workers' health. So, the first risk control which you can do is avoidance. Second is loss prevention. So, loss prevention aspects a risk but attempts to minimize the loss rather than eliminating it. So, for example, we can say that inventory stored in a warehouse is suspected uh, for a theft. Since there is no way to avoid it, a loss prevention program is put into place. The program includes patrolling security guards, CCTV cameras, and secured storage facilities. Insurance is also another example of risk prevention that is outsourced to a third party by the contract. The third one, loss reduction. So, loss reduction aspects the risk and seeks to limit losses when threat occurs. So we can say that a company storing flammable material in a warehouse installed state of art a mechanism of water to be sprinkled when a fire occurs in the factory, or fire extinguishers throughout the warehouse is sort of loss reduction. It's separation. So this involves dispersing key assets so that the catastrophic event at one location affects the business only at that location. If all assets were in the same place, the business would face some serious issues. So we can say that a company utilizes a geographically diverse workforce so that the production may continue when issue arises at one warehouse. Then fifth one is duplication. It involves creating a backup plan, often by using technology. So let us give an example like this. Because information system server failure would stop a company's operation, a backup server is readily available in case the primary server fails. The last one is diversification. So this one is Allocating the business resources for creating multiple lines of business, offering a variety of product or services in different industries. A significant revenue loss from one line will not uh, result in a loss to a company's bottom line, which is let us take an example. In addition to a serving food, a restaurant can have a grocery stores carrying its line of salad dressing and sauces, all like this, so that if there is a loss in a restaurant, they can manage it from the grocery stores. So this is called as diversification of resources. So by this, our first unit is getting over. So the first unit, it is mostly related to risk management, risk insurance, and risk control. And your third unit, second unit, third unit, and fourth unit, and fifth unit, it deals with derivatives, financial derivatives. So how to control the risk? Financial derivatives is one sort of controlling a risk. So we continue in our next class. Do you have any questions in today's class? Yes. Yeah, I will give you the assignment of completing this second unit after three more classes. Maybe before your mid semester. Any questions related to today's class? Yes, Matthews. Okay. Yeah, I will share you the notes. Okay. After completing the two units, I will share you the notes. Okay. If there is no other question, can we wind up the class? Okay. Thank you.